Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. A few years ago, my friend Christine showed me how to make this particular item, and it's been a pretty good seller at shows, and I think it's kind of a cool thing, and so hopefully you'll enjoy it too. What I'm talking about is a little sterling silver ponytail cover that you slide down over a rubber band around a ponytail, and it covers up the rubber band. So hopefully you'll enjoy this and find it useful. And if you do, would you please like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you want video updates, make sure to push the bell button to get those. That being said, let's get started. You don't need too many materials to make one of these. For this one, I have this piece of 18 gauge sterling silver sheet, just kind of a little chunk that was left over from a bigger piece. And then I'm going to use some 14 gauge round silver wire. And in order to texture it, I'll use a little peen. You can use a ball peen hammer, or this is a chasing hammer, and I use the little peen that's on the back of that usually, so that works pretty well. It makes a nice thing. But I think for this one, I want to make it a little bit thinner sheet than this, so I think I'm going to use the rolling mill and thin this out a little bit and spread it wider so I can get a little bit more surface area and maybe spread the weight out a little bit more. Alright, so let's go do the rolling mill thing. Okay, so this is my rolling mill area, and this is not an expensive rolling mill, this is a cheap model. The thing that I want to tell you about rolling mills is it seems like the direction you turn this to open or spread the wheels to make them wider or narrower is always the opposite direction of what you think it's going to be. So I'm just going to flatten this out, so I just need to feed it through and get it to where I can get it in there, and then I'll tighten it up just a bit. Just enough to make it hard to get going. And we'll run it through. I don't think I have that tight enough. Okay. So if we do this too many times, the metal would become brittle, and then it could have a tendency to crack. So if I get it too much thinner, I probably want to go back and anneal it, which is to soften it back up with the fire, and then come back and do some more. But I don't think I have too many more steps to go, so I think I'm probably okay. That's wide enough for what I had intended, and it's also thin enough to where it's a little lighter. It'll be a little lighter when I cut it down. Okay, so we'll go from there. I'm going to measure out kind of a square on here, and let's see. It's about 1.25 inches wide. So we'll go with that. This would be about 1.25 inches here. Okay, so I'm going to cut. Now I'm just going to spend some time filing this, get it into a nice shape. I'm probably going to round the corners a little bit, get rid of this little burr over here. So this is one of the few things that I polish in advance of soldering something on. I'm going to be, I want to get rid of all the scratches, as many as I can, before I hammer it with the peen on the back of that thing. Just because it will come out, the individual little dents will be shinier than they would be if I left all these scratches in here and stuff. So I'm going to do that. We'll peen it, and then we will solder on the little post that goes on the back that fits through the ponytail rubber band, and then we'll curve it. Actually, no, I think we'll curve it first, and then we'll add the post to it. That'll be easiest. So I'll be back in a second with a shined up piece of metal. Okay, shiny but not perfect, but good enough for what we're doing here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put the paper towel behind it just to kind of prevent the rough surface of the anvil thing that I'm using from impressing on the back too much. I think that's probably good enough. You can see some of the peen marks followed through to the back side, which is fine. Between running this through the rolling mill and pounding on it with the hammer, this thing is super hard now. So if I tried to bend it too much, chances are that it would end up cracking or just being very difficult to bend. So I'm going to anneal this by heating it up to the point where it's kind of a dull red color, and then just let it cool for a while. And that should soften the metal back up. Let that cool for a minute before I quench it the rest of the way. This should be a little bit more malleable now. I'm going to use the plastic hammer now on this thing to just kind of like flatten it back out some. Okay. I got to figure out which way I want to curve it. So you could do it rectangular. I think I'm going to do it diamond shaped like this. If I figure out which side has the. That's pretty symmetrical like that. So I think I'm probably going to use this part of this thing because it's a convenient tool that I have. But you can also use like the handle of ring or a ring mandrel like this to get it started. And once you have it started, curve it down like that. So that looks pretty symmetrical to me. Now, this piece of 14 gauge wire, I'm going to file the end flat. I'll cut a couple of pieces of solder. Don't need huge ones, but it's always good to have a few extra pieces of solder around. Okay, I'm going to grab the piece of 14 gauge round wire with the tweezers. I'm going to flux the end of it, back of this thing. And I'm just going to set the piece of wire right on top of a piece of solder there. If I heat the wire up enough, it should just melt right on there. Got a little ball of solder in there. I'm going to add one more just to be, never hurts to have plenty of solder. Okay, now here's where my aim is sometimes not as good as I would hope. But I'm going to put it towards the upper part of this somewhere. Okay. You just have to do it. I'm applying the heat mostly to the sheet there because that's where most of the mass is. And so I'm just waiting until that reflows that solder that I attached to that peg on the back. So you want to keep holding it until that solder resolidifies if it takes a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and pickle this, and then we'll shine it up and I'll show you how those work. Alright, stay tuned. Okay, let that pickle for a while. It's like silver again, albeit unshined silver. Okay. So I'm going to run back and polish this real quick, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I do with this post and how it works as a way to hold it into a hair rubber band. I have polishing compound on my face. Here's our polished up piece. Now, one of the things we have to deal with is if we want this to be a nice stiff piece of wire that will maintain its strength and integrity, right now it's pretty squishy and soft, so I'm going to actually bend this over like this, and then I'm going to twist this thing a few times. What I'm doing is I'm causing this to torque the entire length of this, which makes it a lot stiffer. You just don't want to do it so far that it actually gets brittle enough to break off, so you have to kind of back off after a bit. Alright, so now let's just bend it like this. I usually cut just a little above where the bottom of the thing is. The bottom of the ponytail concealer clip. But that's how it's going to be, like that. And I'll just file this, and I'll probably use the Dremel or the polishing machine to smooth that out after I clean it up a bit with the file. But the way they work, you just put a hair rubber band and give yourself a ponytail like that, and then you take the little pin that's in there, stick it down in your ponytail. I can't tell if I got this positioned right. Helps to have somebody else do it for you, but it should cover your ponytail then like that. So I'll have to look at the video to see whether I have that on there straight or not. But it's not something I usually wear, but a lot of people seem to like them. You can also make smaller ones for like pigtails, or bigger ones for people who have really a lot of hair volume. This is a copper one I made. It needs to be shined up again, but it's for someone with a great big wad of hair. You can add stones to them. I particularly like this one here. It's a little bit tarnished. I need to polish it up, but it's got a nice piece of malachite in it. Same design basically. And I did a round one on this one. So you can do all different shapes. You can do textures, do multiple stones. You know, you could roll a texture in with a rolling mill. There's all sorts of fun things you can do with these. And it's one of the various types of hair pieces that I've made in the past. In some future videos I will show some other types. There's one particular one I like called a hair kebab, where it's got a pin that goes through both. And I've made a few of those in the past, and I kind of like the way they come out. So I'll make one of those in a video not too far in the future. But that's how you make a little ponytail concealer clip. So, thanks for watching.